It was a warm, quiet afternoon, one of those days where everything feels just a bit too still, like something's about to shift. I was in the kitchen, finishing up some dishes, when I noticed the silence had stretched a little too long. With teenagers in the house, especially a stepson as lively as Jordan, silence usually meant something was up. I didn't think much of it at first, but as I passed by his room, the door wasn't fully closed. I glanced inside, and that's when I saw something I hadn't expected. Jordan was sitting on his bed, looking tense and startled. He jumped when he realized I was standing there. He tried to hide his phone, but I'd already seen enough to know something was going on. The look in his eyes wasn't just embarrassment, it was confusion, worry, maybe even shame. That kind of look doesn't come from just getting caught. It comes from feeling lost, unsure of what you're doing, or why you're doing it. My first instinct was to leave and pretend I hadn't seen anything. But something told me I couldn't just walk away. I'd been in his life for almost 5 years now. I wasn't just his dad's wife, I was a part of his family, and in moments like this, it's family that's supposed to show up. I sat down across from him, heart pounding because I knew I was stepping into delicate territory. I didn't want to embarrass him further, but I couldn't ignore what I'd seen. I gently asked if he was okay, if there was anything he wanted to talk about. He looked away, clearly fighting with himself over whether or not to open up. And then, after a long pause, he told me things I never imagined he was dealing with at his age. He wasn't just exploring things out of curiosity, he was confused, lonely, and feeling neglected after his dad had been spending more and more time away from home, barely even noticing him anymore. As he spoke, it became clear that this wasn't about just a single moment. This was the result of months, maybe years, of emotional distance, of trying to navigate the tricky years of growing up without feeling fully supported. And though I didn't know what to say at first, I knew he needed someone. Someone who wouldn't judge him, someone who would listen without rushing to discipline or shame. So I listened. And for the first time in a long time, I saw the walls he'd built up start to crack. But just as we started to reach a place of trust, something else came up. Something that made everything even more complicated. As I was comforting him, his phone buzzed again, and what I saw on the screen wasn't just troubling, it changed how I looked at the whole situation. There was someone else involved. Someone outside this house. And suddenly, it wasn't just about helping Jordan through a tough time, it became about protecting him. From choices, from people, maybe even from himself. I knew in that moment that I had to make a decision. Stay quiet, let things unfold on their own, or step in deeper, knowing it might cost me the peace in this household, and maybe even my marriage. But what would you do if someone you care about is headed down a dangerous path, and you're the only one who sees it? That was the moment everything started to spiral. And what happened next, well, let's just say, it's not something I ever thought I'd be part of. But it's a story that changed the course of our family, and one I think you need to hear. Because what started as a quiet afternoon ended with a choice that no one saw coming. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept going back to the look on Jordan's face, the panic, the fear, and something else I still couldn't quite name. And that message on his phone, the one I caught a glimpse of before he quickly turned it off, it kept flashing through my thoughts. It wasn't just a casual text from a friend. It was too personal, too suggestive. I didn't know who sent it, but I knew it wasn't someone his age. That chilled me to the core. I wanted to talk to him again, but I also didn't want to scare him into shutting down. He was already so guarded, and one wrong move could push him away for good. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I made breakfast, asked him how he slept, but he barely made eye contact. He knew I hadn't forgotten. There was this quiet tension between us, like we were both waiting for the other to bring it up. His dad, of course, was too busy getting ready for another business trip to notice anything. He didn't ask Jordan how he was doing, didn't even say goodbye properly. Just grabbed his suitcase, said he'd call later, and walked out. I watched Jordan's shoulders slump the moment the door closed behind him. That was when I started putting things together. The distance between him and his dad hadn't started yesterday. It had been building over time. Missed dinners, short conversations, forgotten birthdays. Jordan had stopped trying to get his attention months ago. And somewhere along the way, he started looking for it elsewhere. Maybe from someone who gave him the time and validation he wasn't getting at home. But whoever this person was, they weren't helping him, they were leading him into something dangerous. Later that day, I tried to check his phone again, but he never left it unattended. That in itself told me he was hiding something. I didn't want to invade his privacy, but I was scared for him. I thought about reaching out to his school counselor, but I wasn't sure what I'd even say. I think my stepson's in trouble, but I'm not sure with who. That didn't feel like enough. I needed more. I needed to understand exactly what was going on before I dragged someone else into it. So, I waited until he went to take a shower, and I took a chance. I opened his bedroom door and looked around. His phone wasn't there, but his laptop was still on. I knew I shouldn't have, but I clicked the screen. It wasn't locked. My hands were shaking as I opened his messages. What I saw confirmed my worst fear. There were chats with someone much older, someone who had clearly been talking to him for months. They were flattering him, making him feel seen, important. And the worst part? Jordan trusted them. There were pictures, nothing explicit, but enough to show this wasn't just innocent. The person on the other end was manipulating him, slowly, carefully, in a way that made him feel like he was in control when he wasn't. I could see the shift in the way he wrote, at first awkward and unsure, then slowly more open, even vulnerable. My heart broke as I read the words. He was just trying to feel wanted. I heard the water stop. I had maybe 30 seconds. I closed everything and stepped out, trying to breathe normally, trying not to panic. But something in me had changed. This wasn't just a family issue anymore. It was something deeper. More dangerous. And if I didn't act fast, this could go places we might not come back from. And then that night, Jordan came to me. On his own. His voice was quiet. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded, bracing myself. Because I knew, this was only the beginning. I sat down with Jordan in the living room, trying to stay calm even though my heart was racing. He looked nervous, his eyes darting toward the window like he might run at any second. "I didn't know who else to talk to," he said quietly. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Not a friend. Not his father. Me. He was opening up, finally, and I knew I had to handle it gently. I just nodded, giving him space. He hesitated, then added, "I think I messed up, and I don't know how to fix it." I wanted to ask 100 questions, but I stayed quiet, letting him talk. He explained bits and pieces, how the person messaging him made him feel important, like they understood him better than anyone else. They just listen, he said, eyes welling up a little. It's not like with Dad. Or even at school. The hurt in his voice was raw, and that's when I realized the full weight of what he'd been carrying. This wasn't just about risky texts or inappropriate messages, it was about emotional neglect, about a kid trying to fill a space that had been empty for too long. But the more he talked, the more I saw the cracks in this so-called connection. This person, whoever they were, was grooming him in a way that felt personal, almost calculated. They knew how to use compliments like weapons, how to twist his insecurities into dependency. Jordan didn't see it yet, but I did. I knew we couldn't just ignore this or hope it would blow over. It was a real danger. Still, there was another layer. Something he wasn't telling me. I could sense it. His eyes kept shifting, like he was holding something back. Did you ever meet them in person? I asked carefully. He froze for a moment. Then slowly shook his head. No. But we almost did. Last week. My stomach dropped. He said they made plans to meet at the mall, but he bailed at the last minute. I got scared, he whispered. Something just felt off. That confession brought a new level of urgency. I didn't want to scare him, but I had to find out who this person was. I started thinking about every possible angle. Was it someone from school? Online? Could they know where we lived? The threat wasn't just emotional anymore. It could be physical. And the scariest part? Jordan still wasn't sure it was wrong. Meanwhile, my husband hadn't called. Not even once since he left. I was stuck between protecting my stepson and keeping this family from falling apart. And somewhere deep down, I started to wonder, was I the only one willing to do what had to be done? The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope. Every moment I spent near Jordan, I tried to stay calm, act normal, but inside I was constantly on edge. I was watching everything, who he texted, when he locked his door, how long he stayed online. I didn't want to smother him, but I couldn't pretend nothing was happening. He had opened the door just a little, and I had seen enough to know we were in serious trouble. One night, I heard his phone buzz long after he was supposed to be asleep. I crept to his door, it was cracked just enough to hear his voice. Low, whispering. I don't know, maybe, but what if someone finds out, he said. My heart dropped. I leaned in closer, and what I heard next made my skin crawl. Okay. Tomorrow. I'll come alone. My hand was already shaking as I backed away, mind racing with 100 possibilities. Where was he going? Who was he meeting? I couldn't let this happen. I couldn't just sit back and watch him walk into something that could destroy him. The next morning, I played it cool. I packed his lunch, asked about school, pretended not to notice the nervous energy in his eyes. But I followed him. I waited until he left the house, then slipped into my car and stayed a few blocks behind. I didn't know what I expected, but I wasn't prepared for what actually happened. He didn't go to school. He got on a bus headed downtown. As I trailed him through the crowded streets, my anxiety kept building. He walked with his head down, checking his phone every few seconds, looking around like he was expecting someone. I could barely breathe as I watched him stop near an alley and type a message. A minute later, a black car pulled up. Tinted windows. No license plate I could clearly see. Jordan took a step forward. And that's when I knew I had to act. But I was already too far away. And he was too close to something we might not be able to undo. I rushed forward, weaving through people, my pulse pounding in my ears. I called out his name, loud enough to catch attention, but not enough to panic him. He turned, startled, eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. The car door cracked open, just a sliver, but it was enough for me to see the silhouette of someone inside. A man. Much older than I expected. I grabbed Jordan's arm before he could move any closer. "We need to go," I said firmly. He looked at me, confused, torn between fear and some strange sense of loyalty. "He said he just wanted to talk," Jordan mumbled, barely audible. But I could see it in his face, he wasn't sure anymore. And neither was I. The car peeled away fast, tires screeching against the pavement, disappearing around the corner before I could even catch a plate number. But that should have been the end of it. Only, it wasn't. When we got home, Jordan was shaken, silent. I let him sit with his thoughts while I tried to calm my own. But then came the second hit, an anonymous message sent to my phone. "You shouldn't have interfered." That was all it said. No name, no number I recognized. I froze, staring at the screen, heart thudding. How did they get my number? Had they been watching us? That changed everything. This wasn't just a dangerous conversation between a teen and a stranger. Someone was keeping tabs. Someone knew who I was, and they wanted me to back off. I didn't tell Jordan right away. I didn't want to scare him more. But deep down, I realized this had gone far beyond him sneaking messages to someone online. We were both in something now. Something that had eyes on us, and maybe a plan we hadn't even uncovered yet. And the worst part? My husband still hadn't returned my calls. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed on the couch with Jordan nearby, both of us too wired to pretend things were normal. I finally told him about the message on my phone. He went pale. "They know where we live," he whispered, his voice barely holding together. That's when I knew we couldn't wait anymore. I gathered every screenshot, every message, and drove straight to the police station the next morning. Jordan sat beside me, holding my hand, and for the first time, I felt like he was really ready to let go of this secret. The officers took it seriously. They didn't even hesitate. It turned out this man had been reported before, other teens, same tactics. But this time, they had proof. And with Jordan's help, they traced everything. The messages, the phone number, even camera footage from that alley. The man was arrested 3 days later. They found conversations with several minors on his devices. It was over. At least, that's what I thought. A week later, I finally confronted my husband. He'd just returned from another trip. I told him everything about Jordan, the man, the danger. He listened, silent. But something in his face didn't sit right with me. That night, while he was asleep, I checked his phone. What I found sent a chill through me. The same unknown number that messaged Jordan had also messaged him. Not just once. Several times. The tone was casual. Too casual. Like they knew each other. The case might have been closed, but a new question opened: How deep did this really go? And was the real danger ever outside our home, or had it been inside the whole time? I stared at those messages for what felt like hours. The tone, the timing, it was clear this wasn't just some coincidence. My husband had some kind of connection to the man who targeted Jordan. Whether it was direct involvement or turning a blind eye, I didn't know for sure. But in that moment, everything shifted. This wasn't just about neglect anymore. It was about trust. And that trust was broken. The next day, I sat Jordan down and told him the truth. He deserved that much. He didn't say much at first, but I could tell he felt betrayed all over again. It wasn't just about what happened online. It was about who had been missing in his life and why. I made a choice that day. I told my husband to leave. There were too many questions and not enough answers, and I wasn't willing to gamble with Jordan's safety ever again. We started therapy together. It wasn't easy. There were a lot of hard conversations, but slowly, things began to shift. Jordan opened up more. He started doing better in school. Smiling a little more. Trust wasn't something that returned overnight, but we were building it day by day. Looking back, the danger was never just a stranger on the internet, it was the silence inside our own home. The avoidance, the emotional distance, the unspoken things we thought kids wouldn't notice. They do. If there's one thing I hope people take from this, it's this: listen when they go quiet. Watch closely. And don't be afraid to step in, even when it's uncomfortable. You might just be the only one who does.